There's no reason why that couldn't be your story.
You don't have an expiration date.
I love that.
The actual pages. Like, that's all that matters at the end of the day.
This is the Authors and Agents podcast. Melissa, I'm super excited to have you here with me today to be able to pick your brain and get to know you better. So you have your sophomore novel coming out June 17th, Paging Dr. Hart. So can you tell me a little bit about that one?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me today. I'm excited to talk with you. So, Paging Dr. Hart is the second novel I'm bringing out. It's a dual timeline medical romance with suspense. And so, in the current timeline, we have Dr. Tiffany Hart, and she is having kind of an enemies to lovers situation with a new hire who's come into her radiology department in the hospital. His name is Dr. Ethan Clark. And she has to train him, and she finds him to be rather annoying and cocky, and so they kind of butt heads together, but over time they're forced to live together and to work together. And he starts to kind of grow on her, but she's very guarded, and she is kind of known as the ice queen in the hospital because she keeps herself a little closed off. In the past timeline, we watch her grow up from age 5 to 18, and we see why she is that way. And so I really wanted to like have a lot of depth to the character where you understood her actions in current time because you understood like her past so thoroughly that it would make sense to you why she would react certain ways. And so I was hoping the dual timeline would give you that perspective.
Oh yeah, that's such a good way to build that growth with the character, but also so your female main character doesn't come off as mean or all the
Yeah.
things that they say about women who have been through different things like that. I think that's such a great
Yeah.
vehicle to do that.
Yeah. And she is its reverse grumpy sunshine. So she is a little bit like grumpy in the beginning. And so, but I think as you read it, you get that respect and that sympathy and understand where she's coming from, why she is that way.
Yes, definitely. Well, this is so exciting. So this is book number 2 that you are publishing. So your first one, Holiday Star, came out last year, or was it the beginning of this year?
It was November 1st.
Okay,
It's a celebrity Christmas romance
that's
and
right.
holiday romance, and so I released it November 1st, and
That's
then, yeah,
right. I've just
did great.
lost
It was really
all sense of time. It feels like I just read it a couple months ago, but it was like
yeah,
it is a holiday book, so it had to have been longer than that. It's almost May.
right.
Oh boy. Well, this is exciting. So tell me a little bit about your journey to this point, having book number 2 come out. What did it look like for you to take this jump?
So I always kind of wanted to write and be an author, but I found the idea of it really daunting. And so I went to medical school, I became a doctor, and that was so time consuming. And then I had kids, and that was so time consuming, and those kind of became my identities. And then I just reached a point where those characters have always been kind of talking in the back of my mind, having these conversations, and they wouldn't go away. And so finally I was like, okay. And also looking into my future, like, what do I want to be? Like, can I be more than just a doctor, just a mom? Like, what else do I envision for myself in the future? So finally, I was like, okay, well, I could try this writing thing. Like I could try. No one even needs to know. So I would like the kids would go to bed and I set a goal of like writing 200 words a night for myself, like 200 words, see if you can do it, see if you can't. And then, but usually by the time I got to 200 words, like I wanted to write more. And so 200 words became 1,000 words or 2,000 words. And I was staying up way too late. And then eventually I had a couple books and I was like, okay, well, I'll just put them out there and probably my mom will read them and that'll be cool. And then, but Holiday Star kind of took off. And so it really like gave me hope for the future. And I had at that point actually already written Paging Dr. Hart. And I enjoyed like the character growth of this particular character. Like I said, she starts out kind of grumpy and closed off. And by the end, she's really transformed by love. And so, yeah, so I was like, okay, well, Holiday Star did well. And so let's put out Paging Dr. Hart and see where we go with that.
That is so exciting. Yeah, I think, you know, you have got a lot of great titles going on. You're a doctor, you're a mom, you're an author. You're just very varied, which I love. There's, nothing wrong with reinventing yourself, as they say, over and over
Yeah.
again, right? We can always do new things in different stages of life. And I love that you were able to take the leap finally and get these books under your belt and have them released. Because yeah, Holiday Star did so well, and I remember seeing it all over social media. So that must
Yeah.
have been just so exciting to have it come out.
It was so exciting. When the audiobook companies came and asked to buy the audio rights to it, I was just kind of like, oh my gosh, like this is going places I didn't ever anticipate, and I'm just beyond thrilled. So feeling
Yeah,
very lucky.
super lucky. That's awesome. I mean, not without hard work put into it first, right?
For sure. For
Yeah.
sure.
So tell me about your decision to do indie. Why was that the path you chose?
Well, so my mom is actually a writer. My grandmother was too, but she just wrote for herself. My mom was a writer, like wanted to be an author. And growing up, she actually had a writers group in our house. Like every other week, there was this group of writers who would come together for like 20 years. These people were in my house every other week, and I kind of watched them. And honestly, like none of them, whatever your definition of made it or success is, none of them really like made it. And that was in the days of traditional publishing, right? So I think maybe
Right.
two of them even got a deal, and their books kind of didn't go anywhere. And I just watched that, and I found it a little heartbreaking. And so in my mind, it was like, well, that's an impossible path. These people are working so hard and putting their heart and soul into it, and they're just not getting anywhere. So I was like, nah, I'll go to medical school instead. That seems easier. So in a world where going to medical school seems easier, that's kind of like something's wrong
Ah,
with that world. And then
that's super
thank
wrong.
gosh the landscape. Yeah, I know, but it seemed like I was like, okay, if I do X, Y, and Z, like I get the good grades and I get the test scores and I do the
Right.
volunteering, I could maybe get into medical school. But it felt like with writing, you could do X, Y, and Z and get nowhere, at that
Yeah.
time. And so, but the landscape has changed so much now, and thank goodness. So when the option came to me and I started looking into it, I didn't even consider traditional, to be honest with you. Like it never even crossed my
Awesome.
mind. I had had kind of a bad feeling from all that. Now that I have tons of traditionally published friends, and nothing wrong with taking that path, but for me, like I just was like, no thanks. And also I'm impatient. I knew I finally had a book and I wanted to get it out there. And also I'm also like, I like the fact that I can just wake up in the morning and be like, I'm going to do a giveaway today, or I'm going to do a cover reveal today. And if you're a traditional, you have to wait for approval for those things. And right now in my career, I just like having that level of control and spontaneity. So I'm super proud to be an indie author. Like I've enjoyed it so much.
That's awesome. I finally took the indie plunge last year, but I tried to
Okay.
be traditionally published for like 10 years before that. And if you know me, and I am not a patient person. I'm like the most impatient person in the world. So I'm like surprised I waited that long. I'm like, I feel like I gave it 10
Yeah.
years. That's probably good enough.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take the plunge and do it on my own. But I agree with you. I love that there's so much control that you have over what you do and how you do it and how you market. I mean, I think there is such goodness in that, but also I love that you have these stories and you are able to find the readers for them on your own and connect with them
Yeah.
without the help of big teams, which I think is such an accomplishment.
Yeah, I enjoy it so much. I just like the level of detail that I can be involved with, and I feel like I have such a good relationship with readers because they really are we are like one-on-one with each other.
Yeah. So in your journey so far, what has been like the hardest part of indie publishing?
And definitely the marketing is I enjoy it at some level, but it's incredibly time consuming. And so, I'm starting to really feel like writing the book is, 40 to 50% of it. And then obviously publishing is part of it, but then marketing is 50% as well. Like you really have to get out there and promote it. You have to make connections and interact with readers. And I like all that. It's just very time consuming. And so sometimes like right now I'm promoting Paging Dr. Hart, which means I'm basically not writing because I just don't have time to do both. I also still work. I also still, I'm a mom and a friend and a daughter, and trying to do all of those things and juggle all those things. There does come a point where I have to pick and choose. And so I would say the marketing is the hardest part. What do you think? Don't you think marketing is hard?
Oh, I think marketing is very difficult. I think it's so time consuming but also very creatively like straining because you've got to think of all the ways that you can market it and all the different things that you could do. And yeah, trying to do that in addition to revising or editing or drafting something new is a lot to handle along with all the other things, right? Like that don't have anything to do with books that you have to do in your life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, that is definitely a challenge. Well, going back to Paging Dr. Hart, what is something you hope readers will take away from this story?
I mean, I think her journey is a lot about like having regrets about her past and really forgiving herself and
Mm.
accepting that like she is worth loving, and that who you are in the past doesn't necessarily dictate your future. And so I think that that's hopefully a powerful message. I think that we all might look back at our past and maybe think we could have made better decisions, and she definitely feels that way. Her decisions were maybe a little more extreme than some of ours, but we all deserve to have a bright future, and it's okay for us to reach for that and to let go of whatever darknesses are in our past. And so I think that would be the message I would want.
Oh yeah, that is a lesson we all have to learn in our own time, right? Like it takes different things for different people to learn that. But yes, you guys, I will preach it forever and ever. Your past you can move on from, but it also makes you who you are now, right? Like there's goodness to be
Yeah.
learned from the hard things that you've gone through.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, when you're reading for yourself, reading for pleasure, who are some of your favorite authors to read?
So let's see. I love Emily Henry. I know everybody loves Emily Henry, but
She's great.
I
She's
just
great.
finished Funny Story. I've read all of her books. I just think she's so talented, and I like that she makes her characters like imperfect and intelligent. Like I
Mm.
like that they have a lot of dimension to them. So like she's probably my top tier author. I also just love that Lucy Score and Tessa Bailey make me laugh,
Oh
and they're
yeah.
funny, and like their banter and stuff and some of their steaminess. I love all that. So Allie Hazelwood also is another one. I like that she's bringing attention to like women in academics and STEM. Like obviously I'm a big STEM person myself. So
Yeah.
and so far all of my main characters are female doctors, just because they say write what you know, and that's what I know. So
There you
so
go.
I also love that we can start to focus on how successful women can be, and yet still be feminine and still be romantic and still want to be wooed and fall in love and stuff. So because in the hospital that's definitely something where it's a bit of a challenge to like be feminine but yet still powerful. And so I feel like I like how Allie Hazelwood and is trying to like kind of bring that out a little bit more too.
Oh, I love it. Well, I think you're doing a good job of that too. I definitely
Oh,
got that
thank you.
in Holiday Star.
I appreciate that.
Of course. So looking back on your journey as you were, quietly writing and drafting without really letting anybody know, like what would your main advice be to aspiring authors or even yourself as you were in that stage?
Okay, so I think the biggest thing, and I actually did do it, which I'm so thankful for, is I really strongly, strongly believe that you need to start building your platform, your brand, your readership the minute you pick up that pencil or open up that computer. You don't want to wait till you publish to start that. So, like, if even in my very early stages, I started a newsletter, I opened an Instagram page, I like started to promote what isn't even finished yet, because it takes a long time to build that up. It takes a long time to get newsletter subscribers. It takes a long time to get followers on social media, which are like two of my main avenues of promotion. And so if I had waited till the last minute, I would have been launching a book into a void. And
Yeah.
instead, I launched a book into like at least a pool of people who like already kind of knew it existed and had mild anticipation for it at least. So I think that is like the main thing. It's like start that the minute you start writing. It's so important.
That's very important. Yeah, that is a good way to connect with people and get readers there on the ground level.
Yeah. And I think too, like also being involved in social media, it really taught me like, and I use it, I still every day like look for that. What do the readers want? Like what there's trends in romance, that like are popular, like who did this to you? And my wife and like
Yes.
keywords. And I can incorporate those in my books and read reader expectations if I know about them. And so like not only is social media good for me to give out information, but I get a lot of information from it too, and it kind of helps me guide me to know where areas like to kind of focus on in my writing so that I can make readers as happy as possible, which is ultimately my goal.
I love too that in the indie space, you're able to keep on top of those trends, but also incorporate them into books maybe faster than you would if you were being traditionally published, right? Like you can see the trends and be like, okay, yes, I'm going to put that in my next release that's coming out in 6 months or whatever, and be a part of that, that trend instead of kind of, being a little too late, because that can be hard with traditional publishing.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that, trends come and go. And so you may be writing a book now in traditional publishing, but it won't actually come out for a year and a half from now. And by that time, that trend may have passed and something new has taken its place. So with this, I can pivot really quickly and even last minute, like add in things that I think that the readers will like. So I love that about indie publishing for sure.
Yeah, that is so awesome. So, when you're looking at the actual act of writing, what is like your favorite part about it, and then what's the most challenging part?
So my favorite part is actually the writing. Like I really love writing that first draft and just getting all my thoughts out, even if sometimes I read it and then I'm like, oh, this is gonna need a lot of revision. Like it just feels very cathartic to me. Like I have all this like bottled up in my head and just getting it out is such a relief and a release. I just love that feeling. It's really satisfying. So and then challenging, I think, is things like we talked about marketing. Also, like, honestly, like, I do struggle sometimes with, like, reviews, like, reading, the less favorable reviews. It's hard. Like, people say, "Don't read them," but I wanna read them because I wanna always be improving, and so I read them to look for areas where maybe I could be a better writer so that every book I make is better and better, but it is hard not to take some of those, like, a little personally, especially the ones that can be harsh, so I guess that's one thing I struggle with.
Oh, I think you're not alone in that. I remember when my first book came out in November last year, reading the reviews, and like most of them, of course, were so lovely, but it was my favorite to be like, to compare the reviews where like one would be like, this was way too slow and I took forever to get into it, and the next one would be like, I was sucked in from the first page.
Yes,
And I
yes.
and I was like, okay, these are really confusing to read and try to
I
gather good
know.
feedback.
I had the same thing, like, "Too slow, too fast." I
Yeah.
was like, "Oh, man. I love
Oh,
this character. I hate that same
yes.
character." I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
"Oh."
Yeah, and you know what? That's okay. Then it translated into just like being a little humorous instead of hurtful, I guess, when you compare them that
Yes.
way. But no, I agree
Yeah.
with you. I think I like to maybe try to make myself wait a couple weeks to read the reviews. But
Yeah.
there can be good things found in reviews. It's just sometimes not. Sometimes people are just mean.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. I just tried to read, like, a bunch all at once and, like, assimilate the information and, like, filter it out so that I could, like, kind of see, like, okay, well, areas I could grow or improve, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's always a mixed bag, and that's okay. I mean, it's supposed to be subjective, it's art, so I get it.
Yes, yes, it is. Well, if you were to genre hop, if you were to write something different than romance, what is a genre you'd like to try writing?
Oh, definitely romanticy. I actually love reading. Like my favorite books probably from last year are obviously I know I'm not unusual, but Fourth Wing I adored. I read that book 4 times. And I liked like The Serpent and the Rings of Night. I love like reading romanticy. So if I were gonna dip my hand into anything different, I would probably do that. I actually also like a little dose of horror. I'm not sure I could write
Ooh,
horror, but I
yeah.
occasionally like to read horror. I've read every Stephen King book ever written. So yeah, that would maybe be fun to do. When I feel like a horror with romance would be kind of cool.
Yes, you could do a great horror romance. If you love romantasy, you should read Penn Cole's series, Spark of the Everflame. I don't know if you
Everplane. Okay,
yeah.
it's on my TBR for sure. I've heard
It-
such good things about it,
gosh,
and I've been following her on social media and watching her journey as an indie author. So I definitely so you recommend that one. That's a good one.
I devoured the first three. The fourth one comes out in a couple of months, but I saw, like you, so many people saying great things about it. Oh my gosh, it is so, so, so good. It is, yeah,
Okay.
she's quite
That's,
talented in that genre. So good.
I'm gonna need to move that up on my list then for sure.
Yes, you should. It is a good one. Definitely a slow burn, like slow burn, but so worth it. Like where she keeps you like from getting too frustrated that it's a slow burn.
Perfect.
Well, I have a few questions left for you. Who throughout your writing journey who have been your biggest supporters?
Well, definitely my mom. Like I said, she was kind of an inspiration for writing. And then her career has been as a professional editor, which is actually really cool because she's my editor.
There you
So
go.
she edits my books and she gives me the $0 daughter fee, which I really appreciate because it saves me a little money.
Yeah.
And also, I can harass her and be like, "Hey, mom, it's taking so long. When's my book coming?" Which I can't do to anyone else. Like, I can't
Nope.
tell my cover designer or my formatter or anyone else that. So it's kind of like I feel very grateful that she helps me out with that. So and then she's a mom, so of course she's like, "Oh, it's wonderful. I love it." And so that's been. But she would say that honestly if it was terrible, and that's great about her. I love her so much.
That's good. Yeah, you definitely need family who you can trust to boost your like self-confidence, but also who you know aren't just lying to you about it, right?
Right. That's my husband. He was the last person to read the book because I was like, he's going to tell me how it really is. So I was more
Yeah.
nervous to give it to him than anyone else.
My husband is like not a reader at all, but he is so good at catching like little errors and things. And so I always am like trying to like force, I give him like 5 pages at a time because if I give him too much, he like gets overwhelmed because he's just
Mhm.
not a reader. But he's the best at catching like things that, my eyes just have gone over way too many times.
That is so funny because that is exactly my husband too. He only reads usually nonfiction, so this is totally out of his wheelhouse. But he is so good at being like, okay, in last chapter they had on sandals and now they're tying their shoelaces. And I'm like,
Yes.
I'm like, how did you notice that? I've read it 500 times. I didn't notice that. He's so good at the details.
That is so funny because my husband was reading one of my book that just came out this month is like a time loop book, and he was like,
Ooh,
"Okay,
cool.
wait, they just went into the high school, but now in the next page they're going into the high school again." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, how did that? The same thing. Like, how did that miss? How did I miss that?" But yeah, he's pretty good at that.
That's awesome. We need that, right? We need it.
We do indeed. Well, when you are, drafting or in the thick of anything book writing related, what is like your writing fuel? Like favorite thing to eat or drink?
You know what? I do it really late at night when everybody's in bed. So I'm usually like in the dark with like the covers like tucked up to the laptop. And so I'm not really eating or drinking anything. When I do have the rare time where I get to do it during the day, I have this little coffee shop. It's like a little independent coffee shop. And they make the best white chocolate lavender mocha. So
Ooh,
that is
yum.
probably my favorite thing. It is so yummy. They make
Oh,
their own homemade lavender syrup. And it's just like the perfect blend of like a little bitter, a little sweet, really good.
oh, I love it. That does sound delicious. Yeah, you always gotta, when you
Mm,
go to a coffee shop, just enjoy something a little decadent.
mhm. Yeah, and their baked pastries are like they're my nemesis. They're so good. They make these croissants with like feta in the middle of them. I'm like trying
What?
to limit myself to 1 week. They're so good.
Oh my gosh, that sounds incredible. I just went and had like 45 minutes to myself to go to a coffee shop on Saturday and got a chocolate croissant, when it's like warm and the chocolate's
Mm,
all melted, but a
yes.
feta croissant literally makes my mouth
Yes.
water.
Oh my gosh, and it has like these Mediterranean spices on the top and they make it
Yeah,
in-house by hand. Yeah,
stop.
and they only have it, like, Fridays and Saturdays because it's so labor intensive, so every Friday, I'm, like, running there, and then sometimes they're out because like, it's so popular,
No!
and I'm like,
Oh
"No."
my gosh, that sounds so delicious. I need to like see if there's a Pinterest recipe and try to make it myself or something.
Right, right. I'm like, "Friday is croissant day." I, like, tell my husband, "It's croissant day," and he's, like, looks at me like I'm crazy.
Oh my gosh, that sounds so, so good. Well, Melissa, I only have one question left for you. It does sound a little challenging, but it's not. I'd love to know what your favorite book is right now. This is not favorite book of all time or best book you've ever read. Just something you've read recently that you're like, okay, everybody needs to hear about this one.
I mean, it's, like, from last year, so I'm not sure if it should count, but I still love Book Lovers by Emily Henry. That was the book that kind of I got so much joy out of that book, and I just liked how intelligent that main character was, and that was kind of the book where I was like, if I could bring like, it gave me so much joy, and I just get so much joy out of reading in general. Like, I'm a voracious reader, and I always have been. And that was kind of the moment where I was like, if I could give this to other people, like if I could make other people feel happy like this or let them escape the reality of their life just for a few minutes and live in like this imaginary world, where you get to date a hot movie star or whatever it is, or like, have this like romantic kiss in the middle of Disney World or wherever it is. Like, if I could do that, like, I feel like that would be such a gift, like, to be able to do that for other readers. And that was kind of the moment where I was like, all right, I'm going to try this thing. Let's just give it a whirl and see what happens.
I love that. And I loved that book too. It was so, so, so good. So
Right?
yeah, that's a great one. And I think too, I love when books you're able to enjoy them and to love the romance and the story and the characters, but also like you're saying, like you were like, okay, I really want to do something that's like as good as this, or like it motivates you to be
Yes.
like, okay, I'm gonna up my game and like this is what I want to do.
Yeah, yeah. And it's just like how, I mean, it just reminded me that books have a unique ability to really like transport you into someplace magical, and like that is such like a really neat thing. And if I could be a part of that, like that's mind blowing to me.
Yeah, yeah, that is so wonderful. I'm so excited for you. So this sophomore novel coming out is going to be such a blast, and I can't wait to see what else you do and the other books that come out. Are we going to be getting any like book 3 announcements anytime soon, or what are
I'm,
we
Yeah, I have written the first draft of Holiday Wedding, which is the sequel to Holiday Star, and it
nice?
covers the weeks leading up to Gwen and Caleb's wedding from Holiday Star. And so I've the rough drafted that down. It's been actually just got back some alpha reader feedback on it. So it needs some revising and stuff. Like I say, I'm kind of like putting it aside right now so I can promote Paging Dr. Hart. But I would love to get back to it. So that'll be my next project that I'm working on, is finishing Holiday Wedding, which, you know how you get just so attached to your characters. So it's always like fun to come back and spend time with them. And like, especially in this one, it's really watching their relationship like progress and watching it deepen and watching them overcome challenges that all relationships face. And one's probably unique to their circumstance since he's a celebrity. So, and then I'm bringing in new characters and really enhancing favorite side characters in this book that readers have expressed that they want to see more of. And also like really take, that's where those reviews help. Like those reviews, I saw what readers were asking for, and I'm trying to really meet what they would like to see. So that's what I'm working on now. I'm hoping that I can get back to it and get it finished up so I can get it out to everyone.
I love it. So do you have any inkling that maybe like those side characters will become the stars of their own books someday?
Well, this one is dual POV, and it is not. So the one main point of view is Gwen, who is the original point of
Yeah.
view in Holiday Star, but the second point of view is a side character. It is not
Oh,
Caleb. Her
okay.
fiance is a side character. So I'm really trying to give them a life of their own because the readers were interested to learn more about them. So trying to like expand that world by letting you into other characters' heads as well.
Oh, I love that. That is super exciting.
Yeah.
Well,
It's double
awesome.
the
Well,
romance. So you
yes.
can't hurt that's always good.
Yeah, yeah, you can't complain about that, right?
No, no.
Well, awesome, Melissa. I'm so excited for you and so excited to see, how this release goes for you. Everyone, please make sure to pre-order Paging Dr. Hart. It comes out June 17th, and make sure to go follow Melissa and join the newsletter so you never miss a thing.
Yes, and I have Paging Dr. Hart, and all my books are in two different versions. So there's a sweet version, which has no explicit language and it only has kissing. And then there's a spicy version, which has mild explicit language and intimate scenes. And I am also doing a pre order incentive gift, a free gift right now. So if you do pre order Paging Dr. Hart, you can go to my Instagram, which is Melissa Dymond Author, which Dymond is spelled Dymond. And I have a form. If you have proof of purchase for pre-ordering Paging Dr. Hart, I will send you a free gift that has all kinds of fun stuff in it, like a bookmark and character art and stickers and a signed book plate. So I really want to reward people for supporting me, and readers. I just couldn't be here without them.
I love it. And yes, like I told you before we were recording, I love the spicy and sweet versions. I think that is such a way to include everybody in the story. And even though, you can put a little guide in front that says, hey, skip these chapters if you don't want to read it, it is nice to not have to worry about that sort of thing if that's not what you want to be reading.
Yeah, yeah. I just want all of my readers to feel comfortable when they pick up my books.
Oh, I love it. Oh, I was going to ask you, indie author question about that. Do you have to have like two listings for the book? Like one the
Yes,
sweet version and one the
yeah.
spice?
So I have a totally separate Amazon listing for each one. So like one will say Paging Dr. Hart, a spicy medical romance with
Mm.
suspense, and then the other listing will say Paging Dr. Hart, a sweet medical romance with suspense. And I have to have separate ISBN numbers for them as well.
Well, that is nice that you made that sacrifice to
Yeah.
invest in that so that were allowed, able to have that option for your readers.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Wow, thank you, Melissa. This has been a joy, and I'm so excited for Paging Dr. Hart to come out into the world.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really enjoyed talking with you today. I appreciate it.